If you're new to the sewing world, the sheer volume of sewing machines on the market may seem overwhelming. Even experienced sewers often hesitate to try out specialized machines because they find the wide range of models confusing. For example, if you're considering purchasing a Serger vs a sewing machine, you probably want to know what the difference is between these machines. A Serger is a specialized kind of sewing machine with unique capabilities. The main difference between a Serger and a sewing machine is that the Serger specializes in simultaneously sewing a seam, cutting off the seam allowance, and enclosing the raw edge all at the same time. In this video, you'll learn how a Serger works and how it is different from a regular sewing machine. You will also find some key questions to consider as you decide whether or not you need one. What is a Serger or overlock machine? A Serger sews a seam closed and simultaneously stitches over the edge of the seam allowance, entirely encasing the seam. Most Sergers also trim the extra seam allowance as they sew. These machines create neat, perfectly finished seams with factory-like precision. The most obvious characteristic of Sergers is that they use several spools of thread at once. Depending on the model, your machine may use anywhere from 2 to 5 cones of thread as it sews. What does a sewing machine do? In the simplest possible terms, a sewing machine uses thread to stitch together several layers of fabric. Most domestic machines can sew a straight stitch, a zigzag stitch, and some more complex stitches such as buttonholes or even pretty flowers. You can use the average domestic machine to sew seams in many ways: hem fabric, set a zipper, sew facings, create a buttonhole, and often stitch some embroidery designs as well. Modern sewing machines are usually computerized and come with a wide array of stitching patterns programmed into them. The basic mechanics of how the machines work has not changed a lot since the first sewing machines were invented during the Industrial Revolution, though. Serger vs sewing machine. What's the difference? The main difference between a sewing machine and a Serger is that Sergers use an overlock stitch to encase a seam completely as they sew. In one sense, Sergers have more specialized and limited capabilities than most sewing machines. On the other hand, Sergers accomplish multiple tasks at once that you would have to complete one at a time while using a regular machine. Design. One key difference in the design of these machines is that Sergers usually have a rack of tall thread cones on top. Most sewing machines function using one spool of thread and one bobbin. Sergers draw from 3 to 5 cones of threads and use looper threads instead of a bobbin. Usually, Sergers also have a squatter, more square design than sewing machines. Most sewing machines feature a longer neck. This is because these machines require more wiggle room for tasks like sewing in zippers, while Sergers are designed to sew seams. Number of threads. You already know this by now. But a key difference between these machines is the number of threads they use. Sewing machines use one spool of thread and one bobbin to create stitches, unless you are using a double needle, but even that only uses 2 spools of thread. Cutting knife. Sergers have some features that average sewing machines lack, such as a cutting tool to trim the seam allowance. This creates a perfect finish while also sewing the seam. Number of stitches. Most sewing machines today come programmed with dozens of possible stitches. Sergers usually do not. They provide limited types of stitches, but these can be used for many different tasks. That said, a basic sewing machine can also perform many unique tasks that overlocking machines cannot. Easy to thread. With a little practice, you can easily learn how to thread a normal sewing machine. You might find Sergers more difficult to thread. This is because you have to learn the thread path for 3 to 5 different threads instead of just one. It's a good idea to refer to the owner's manual and possibly watch some YouTube clips if you are new to this. Performance. Stitches per minute. Every sewing machine and Serger has slightly different stitching speeds, but Sergers usually whip out far more stitches per minute than the average sewing machine. Most sewing machines stitch between 1,000 and 1,500 stitches per minute. Sergers average anywhere from 1,300 to 2,200 per minute. Learning curve. You may find Sergers more difficult to understand than your normal sewing machine. If you follow the same path as many home sewers, you probably started with a regular domestic machine and learned basic skills like sewing a straight seam, hemming a garment, and adding zippers. Eventually, you decide you want to up your game and create professional-looking finished seams, so you purchase a Serger. Price. Sergers and sewing machines have pretty similar price ranges. You can purchase a new, basic Serger for about $300, but you can also buy super advanced models for as much as $2,000. Likewise, decent domestic machines usually sell at around $200, $300. You can also find expensive sewing machines programmed with 1,000 different stitches, and these can cost as much as a couple of $1,000. Most really, Expensive sewing machines are computerized embroidery machines. But that is a whole other story. We are going to end this video right away. If you have any query or information to share, please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.